Good afternoon and welcome back to our Mind the Chat series. As you know, we are used to talk about innovation, specifically open innovation. And typically we are trying to understand how our innovation leaders across the globe from multiple industries are tackling with one of the hottest topics, how to reinvent themselves, involving as much as possible startups and scale-ups. Today, we will discuss about a very, very specific and fascinating industry. And the company that we will be with us today is Airbus. Airbus, as you might know, is one of the world's leaders talking about airlines, talking about defense, talking about space company, helicopters, so pretty diversified large giants. And just to give you also the economic of this business, we're talking about a company that is 70 billion in revenue and have an amount of a net count of about 135,000 people scattered across 35 countries, 130 nationalities involved. And for our today's chat, we have one of them. Specifically, we have the head of the BizLab, Airbus BizLab initiative. And talking about person from different nationality, I think the person that we have today with us, Chris Lindener, is pretty interesting also for his specific background. He's Brazilian born, grown up in Mexico, if I'm not wrong, and then ended up in Germany, despite now today is in Mallorca. And so a pretty interesting background. And so Chris, first of all, thank you for joining our Mind the Chat today, and welcome.
Many thanks, and many thanks for the invitation. We're looking forward to it, and nice to see you. And hello to everybody at home.
So, first of all, before discussing and going in depth and trying to understand what Airbus is doing, is approaching, is evolving, is changing, because again, I think the only thing that I've learned thus far, talking with all people like you, is that the open innovation topic is something that is continually evolving. And so I think if you're doing something in the same way for more than probably 1 year, there is something wrong on your side. So again, it's an evolving beast, and people have to continue to change, reshape, try to make it work. But before going into that and try to understand what Airbus is doing, let's talk about you again. As I said, there is a pretty interesting background. I think if I can remember, you are joining Airbus from Wire Telefonica, Germany. So tell us a bit about your background, your journey before joining Airbus.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. So I joined this company in November of last year, taking over the leadership of the BizLabs at Airbus. Previously to that, as you said, leading Telefonica's WIDA from Munich. WIDA, which has been, you know it very well, one of the first ones being in this business as a corporate accelerator, investing in startups, being the local player within the ecosystem, investing in far more than 500 startups so far. So it's also been a very interesting journey on learning how big corporates do stuff with startups, but especially learning on what not to do with startups while investing in startups. Previous to Telefonica and WIDA, I led the Tech Founders, which is a high-tech hardware accelerator in Munich, working with BMW, Bosch, Siemens, Festo, Adidas, a couple of German heavyweight 4.0 champions. And previously to that, the journey actually started as an entrepreneur, founded myself 2 companies, the first one being a hardware company, where we did nothing else than build an electric bike. That was back in 2009, 2010. The hype of electric bikes was not even foreseeable at that time. Yeah. Managed to raise a funding round still, and then, as many entrepreneurs do so, we had to wind down the company. right? It's what happens, I think, when you're doing the first steps and funding round, and you're still young. You make a lot of errors there along the way, which is also natural. But we managed to, with 3 of the 4 founders, we managed to fund and found the second company, which was within augmented reality, and we managed to sell this one to a big European booking platform, and then surely saw how this technology then vanished within this corporate. And this then brought me to the question: corporates and startups, can they even work together? And fast forwarding then to when I joined Airbus, what attracted me, I mean, what still amazes and attracts me to this company is the amazing scale of this company, right? Everything being so huge. When you go into manufacturing sites, it's big. When you see our products we have, there's nothing more technological or even more complex, I think, within mobility than the products we produce. But still, being so technological, the space between corporates and startups and corporates and innovation here is very, very interesting, right? Because on the one hand, you produce an aircraft which has to be more than 100% reliable and safe, and which they are. But on the other hand, in innovation, we do experiment, and of course, we also do fail. So this is what attracted me at the beginning, and still attracts me to be where I am. And yeah.
And again, I read one of your most recent interviews, and discussing, and then we go deeper into that. One of the reasons that put you to accept the challenge of Airbus is that you want to have Airbus take larger bets, because I think, yes, we have done well, but we've not yet done the difference. And again, this is, I think, is the real chasm where most of the innovation activities, whatever, are struggling. Yes, we are doing well, but not big enough. So we are not taking moon shots. We are just taking something that is good, is positive. And so just to spoil a bit of the ending of our conversation, what's your overall view, talking about not just Airbus, but typically corporates as broadly in their approach to innovation and to startups?
Yeah, I mean, my personal journey here, and my personal learnings from all these years now, it's already been more than 10 years, I think, within innovation, is that there are no shortcuts to innovate, right? I think every corporation has to make its own journey, starting from, I mean, typically what big companies do is taking a look what are the big tech giants doing in Silicon Valley, and then kind of adopting or trying to adopt why these companies are so successful. But I think every corporation has to look inside its own company to see what are the prerequisites to innovate. If I'm a very manufacturing-driven company, you're surely going to take a different approach towards innovation when you're very digital. And you have to do these learnings, starting with incubators, accelerators, innovation management. What we do is so complex that nobody will just put it there and then it will just start. That's what Agile, for example, refers to pulling little fires everywhere. I don't think also that everybody in a company needs to be innovative, right? There's a profitable core business which works, which has to be 100% reliable, which people can trust, and then there are the innovators and the experimenters, which is this 1% of the company which has the mandate to explore. Now, our field is still very young, right? Corporate venturing, corporate innovation has around, especially in Europe, let's say 6 to 7 years,
Yeah.
which in the lifespan of a corporation is nothing. So people started to adopt best practices, incubators, accelerators, then kind of learn from that, and especially the journey making this even better around the years is also what we do, because that's innovation as well, right? So our learnings as well from my previous job and now as Airbus are also brutal. But it doesn't mean that everything before was not worth it. It's the path to get there. And only if you have those learnings, only if you have those scars, let's say, you can be better. So we saw the first waves now coming with innovation labs, with incubators, then accelerators. There's this weird animal, a startup. What can we learn? We have to be more like a startup. No, we don't, right? Because a big corporate should not be as a startup. It's very, very, very much different from the cultural aspect and also from the products we do. But we can learn from how startups work, how they pivot, how fast they can be. But the same I've experienced on the other side. I've just seen a lot of startups that take an approach, especially when they're into B2B sales, not knowing who's your customer, right? If you talk to a large corporate, you need legal, you need procurement, you need all these elements a big corporate has to get to your goal, to sell your product. So it is more on the buffers in between, which are the innovation labs or accelerators or incubators, you name it, that actually need to get to their alignment, right? Most of the time, aligning the speeds of the two different players that are very much differently. And the second big key learning is that instead of being opportunistic, instead of being reactive all the time, you always see it in in events we're going to. People talk about the Kodak moment or the Nokia moment, try to scare it out of it. So instead of waiting for the next disruptor or being disrupted, we know our industry best. So I think we know what's coming. But taking also here, and that's what I meant with taking a bold approach, defining the future of our companies ourselves, right? We know what the market trends are. We will know what the disruptors are. We just have to get there. And this brings us then to, I would say this would be then the third innovation evolution, having the two waves before behind us, where we say, we know where we're going, now let's build this, implement this, and scale this. That is then the cherry on top of the ice when we talk about innovation. And I see good chances, and also aligned with what my peers in other industries are doing, is that we should take it in our hands to define the future.
Yeah, and then totally agreed. But at the end, I was thinking about, you say we don't need to be all of us innovators. Probably 99% of the company should continue to do their own job. There should be 1% that should be able, the one that is driving the future. The real struggle, at least that I see working with many large corporations like yours, is that most of the time this 1% has not critical mass and influence and ability to steer the company towards the future, while the remaining 99% still keeping the company on the old navigation track. So this is the main struggle that I see happening most of the time, that you see a bright future, you see direction, the direction are not 100% certain, because if not, it's not called innovation. Yeah. But the typical corporate DNA is preventing to make that bet, because it's it's a bit too risky, and so at the end you get decent results, but you get the one that can really reshape your company 5-10 years from now. So that is the big struggle, at least, that we are seeing, and I think it's typical.
Let me catch on that one, because I mean, to really make things big, implement and scale them, in our industry and in similar sizes, we're talking about billion euro businesses here. So on the one hand, as you said, their own inertia is preventing businesses to really innovate and build something new. But now it's the time to, and especially now this time at the moment gives us time to reflect on what we did last year. So why did we not go to get to implementation and scale? Because the internal processes were yet not ready for that. So this would also be my advice to anyone who's starting some sort of innovation activity. Look inside your own company. Is it even internally ready to do so? Do you have a fast track procurement processes? Do you have lean contracts? And what is the path then to be successful? Because that also happens, like you're starting to have a little bit of success, and then the company comes and steals or kills your idea. So what is your process to either nurturing this within an existing business unit? What is your process in building a new business unit, or even spinning this off, or doing another legal entity? You have to start at the beginning. What people wanted to make the world believe, that innovators are the rebels within the company, they're pirates, they're whatever. They're not. They're thinking differently. But no, we're part of this company, and if you behave according to how your company wants you to behave, you're going to be more likely to succeed. So you have to follow the rules, but you need that part of freedom to experiment, and then have a clean process to get those allies you built at the beginning to scale your solution. So that is what is a little bit different from the last years.
I think it's part of the evolution path. Again, we were mentioning Telefonica, again, one of the pioneers, I would say, at least in Europe, in corporate venturing, and obviously have done a lot of things that probably starting 2020 should not be done in the same way, because there is some learning. And so I believe that, and that's one of the reasons we are having such conversation, that companies that are starting today in the open innovation game, they should start factoring of the learning that the pioneers have accrued over the years. And that is why we are trying to share in this kind of experiences as much as possible, in a way that they can get a sort of fast track, when they can start using tools that are already being validated and reshaped, and are at least have a chance to be more successful. That's some tools that we already use, abandoned in the past few years. But let's go a bit more in talking about specifically Airbus. First question for you is, how is structure? Again, it's a tough question, because we probably take the full hour, but how is structure innovation inside a giant company that is so R&D heavy like Airbus?
And it's not even R&D heavy. There's even something that is before R&D. I didn't know that previously to my job here, which is R&T, right? Research and technology. It's so complex to bring something into the air, making it fly, that there are just so many processes to really get to that aircraft, and you research a lot of technologies on the way to get there, where the typical engineer or the company, which is full of fantastic inventors and engineers, craft, but don't think that much of this could be a separate business model behind it, right? So when we structure research, technology, and innovation ecosystem, we always start with the center at the strategy, right? So what is our company strategy depicting the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 years? Because also learning here whatever innovators do that is very too far from the company strategy, you really have a hard time afterwards integrating this and getting this into the company, right? So Airbus will not build the next Tinder platform, right? It's just not our core or even adjacent business, and it's not something where we also see a business. So whatever we do will be within the third dimension. So align the innovation strategy with the company strategy. When we have defined the strategy and planned the strategy, I mean, this is a process that is ever evolving. We define the technology roadmaps which we have to use to really get to those breakthrough technologies. And here we are at R&D, what I said, before even starting R&D. So those roadmaps, we break them down to research and technology. These are topics like electrification, like autonomy, for example. Those are what we're doing in the public, and we start driving those technology roadmaps through the R&D project. When we have defined that, like an onion, we slice this over with things that come our way, which we really want to see early on. And therefore, a couple of years ago, 2 innovation centers were mounted up, one in the Silicon Valley, which is eCube, and one in the heart, and it's a very exciting ecosystem in Shenzhen, which is the Airbus China Innovation Center. You see only in this ecosystem startups and data scientists and makers all around doing fantastic things, and we want to be there on the ground to really spot early on those technologies. So this is where we see things that are not necessarily within the adjacent of our company, but which will come. And then taking an opportunistic view on startups where we could say either we invest with the minority stakes to the corporate venturing fund Airbus Ventures, or these are startups where we say we build a partnering approach where we really bring those startups into our system and then really fast do proof of concepts with the ultimate goal to have this company as a supplier and grow with them. So in the BizLabs, we do not take any equity, which is very different to previously Wida and Telefonica.
Yeah.
Because we saw also that there are always some blockers on the way if you mix equity with business. It's a very complicated approach which you really have to master. That both parties get their value out of it. So only with this with the onion I showed. So this is only one part of the company where we're innovating. This is within technology. This is within the CTO where we are. As I said previously, Airbus is a company full of inventors per se, and there are many more innovation vehicles within this company, but which necessarily have to be aligned on what we want to get with the company strategy.
So substantially, the one that you describe is the one reporting to the CTO of the company.
Exactly.
And then there are in other part of the company, there are other innovation engines that work almost independently. This is pretty typical with more companies. Let's focus on, again, let's start for your home turf, that is BizLab. And so if I can remember, it was started in 2015. And how many projects has been developed as of today? How many are external? How many are internal? Because I think one of the interesting part of and specificity of BizLab is you're not just nurturing external startup, but also internal projects.
Correct. So how this started was with the idea to merge 2 innovation approaches, right? We have outside in, which is focusing on startups that have an interesting technology that is interesting for us, which we want to further explore, or a really quick win a startup has a technology that will bring us more revenues or really internal efficiency, just meaning cost savings, and we can really quickly onboard these startups. It started 2015 with a classical accelerator model, having office spaces opening, offering workshops for these startups, but we would not be innovators if we not have further developed this approach, right? So instead of doing very early stage nurturing of startups, which is, I think, the right to play of fantastic academia you have out there and building great companies, our right to play is more how to get them really fast into our system, right? And from the startup side, also teaching them how do you do B2B sales with the leading aerospace company of the world, which is an art per se. So we took that approach outside in, and then saw a lot of innovation ideas also coming from inside out or inside in, the so-called entrepreneurs, right? I don't like that much to distinguish between entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, because for me, doing something differently and then bringing value for me as an entrepreneur per se. So discovering those entrepreneurs within our company who can build great things and putting them together with the startups was an initial thought a good idea. So of course this idea now evolved on going from very early stage startups to more mature later stage startups that know how to work with corporates, right? And also the entrepreneurs on giving more guidance on the strategic topics we want to be in. So this hybrid model is still valid, but now it's also just melting in a natural flow where we say this is innovation, no matter outside in, inside in, or even inside out, spinning off companies. This is one thing that needs to be established within every company. So that is what the BizLab was doing. Of course, constantly we retrospectively how much value we are adding. Also trying out new things like Africa for Future, for example, which is a virtual accelerator. Well, this year we went virtually for African startups to see how they use our data platforms for satellite imagery, for example. So these are things we're constantly exploring, and we just making the numbers. One out of 3 startups do get a follow-up project from Airbus, which I think compared to others is a very high successful.
1 out of 3, yes.
Yeah.
How many projects have you incubated thus far? 150-ish?
Yeah, exactly. It must have been between startups and entrepreneurs more than 100 certainly. And then we have another 100 evaluated through Africa for Future. So this is the 5th season just coming to an end, the cohort, and yeah, it must have been around that number, yeah.
Okay. And so remember your interview, you say, yes, we have done some decent startups, but not good enough to make a transformational change into the company. So since, again, the nature of the business is continually evolving, what are the directions that you foresee for the future in order to make it this BizLab even more effective in producing transformation? I think you're mentioning let's work with something that is closer to the core business on the one hand, something that is a bit more mature. What are the direction that you foresee?
Exactly. So I mean, these are really the biggest changes, and I can also only advise anybody who's starting in that field to really it's nice and really interesting to work with the early stage founders, but you get the most value out of the later stage startups, right? Startups that have already established processes to comply with the security, for example, that a large company needs. It's also when you start very early on shaping a startup, you always need to leave the startup with its freedom to evaluate and do their product. If you enter too early, you're going to find the startup doing something only for you. But we want to not only have a solution for us, but aerospace in general. So this is one of the biggest change levers we not only have undertaking here, but also like my colleague at Telefonica, going to the later stage startups. The second one, and this is also very essential, you need the internal buy-in from the beginning, right? If we start to do something on our own and then go to the business unit and say, like, look, I have here this fantastic innovation. It's something crazy. It's artificial intelligence. Just take it. You need it. It's just not going to work. So we take the internal people from the beginning, still having the mandate to say this will probably work or will not work. But we need the internal buy-in from people that are operational and tech experts on the one hand, but also having a sponsor on the other side that then really goes through the organization and pushes us through. And this is also one element which is I would say very sexy of the BizLab, reporting directly to the CTO of the company. So innovation has a very high strategic value within this company. If you start something in an innovation lab, reporting to a manager who reports to another manager, it will just not make it, right? So we really need a strong mandate and legitimacy and power to push things through. And that's also when you then come from another side, talking to sponsors on the other side, it's a very different level that needs to be understood. Two elements. The third one being also key here, we focus so much on early stage, incubating, accelerating, where the most important and also more difficult part is implementation and scale. That's where you really get dirty. That is really where it gets messy, when you really make those things big. And it's an art per se to scale something internally. You have to do so many moves before, and you really have to align politics, strategy, company on all sides to really make this happen. So if as an entrepreneur in the outside world, in the free world to say so, you are having one war against the market, here you're having two challenges, an internal one and an external one. And if all these points come together, the outcome, the scaling is beautiful, right? But we were focusing too much in the industry in general to do nitty-gritty things outside of the company and then trying to put them in again. It doesn't work without having proper interfaces. And that's where it really gets really critical. All the other stuff, workshops, co-working space, free coffee, free water, people don't care about this. Startup or entrepreneurs, they want to do business. They want to create great companies. And you have to really get those gateways. And as an innovator, you're there to clear the space, right? You're actually a leader to really give those ventures the space to act freely and then to grow. So it's a beautiful place to be, actually. If you really have the feeling that you're doing something and advancing something, it's amazing.
No, again, listening what you were saying, it looks like that you are in a certain way painting a direction of evolution for the BizLab that is going from traditional accelerator, batches, early stage, whatever, to something that today is being called venture builder, meaning we need to have definitely be more focused, something that is strongly or either core to business or is able to produce some significant impact and value. More than means involving more later stage startups, what we call scale-ups, technically speaking, or if you are start something that is early stage but is strategic, you have the resources to make it scale fast. Because at the end, working with early stage initiative at the end creates disappointment, because again, it takes too much to get to the point. And then having top level buy-in, and the buy-in also from the business unit, because no business units, no party at the end. If the business units, the divisions are not involved in the game, at the end, nothing will happen. And that is something that is another pretty clear trend that we are seeing happening, particularly also from some CVCs. Example, I think it's very, very interesting, the experience of Robert Bosch, the experience of Shell Ventures, that they are introduced these new figures that are called implementation managers, that are people that are 100% of their time not devoted to find new deals, but devoted to create a relation between their portfolio companies and the business units, because that is the link at the end should happen in order that you can exploit what you're doing. Well, two quick questions I have, actually, not one, two. Number one is, you were mentioning that part of your origination comes from inside. How do you structure the entrepreneurship effort? There are large company. We have discussed with Nestlé, we have discussed with Engie pretty recently. They have structured the process of onboarding these new ideas, this new contribution in a very, very structured way with business unit buy-in. How do you manage the idea deal flow coming from inside to the BizLab?
Yeah, let me give you some insights on that. I would say the most powerful tool we have inside is an innovation management platform, right? We call this Idea Space. It's a platform where we also hear learning, where we launch challenges, right? So really narrowing down what exactly is it what we're looking for. Because if you release something to a workforce of 135,000 people and various locations and nations, if it is like, show me your innovation, you're just gonna have massive deal flow, but probably not that thing what we're really looking for. What you were saying, like, what is going to be the big next thing? You really have to be narrowing down on different challenges. So we launched those challenges in our various divisions: commercial, defense and space, and helicopters, on very specific topics and well-defined topics, right? Because somebody inside making the effort on thinking if this really could work, and evolving more from, oh, I have an idea and I make a slide, but really thinking on the first steps already of feasibility is a very valuable thing to do so. So previously to launching those challenges, as I said before, what is our company strategy, right? What is our innovation strategy depicted from the company strategy? Have we something defined there? And then we can give the direction, because also you need all those parts to be ready at the point where you have that person with the developed idea. You can really bring the value to creating them. So we launch the challenges, we collect all the propositions, and then 2 or 3 times make a sanity quality check, including pitch sessions is one before, but having all the checks before on feasibility, desirability already before. And if then the idea, where we like say the funnel goes like really from really big to really narrow, those are the people then we take into some sort of program. We have a dedicated sponsor, we have budget, and we have resources to really help this entrepreneur to succeed. Taking this in one step further, also building a team around this person. As I said, fantastic engineers. They can be great CTOs. From our side, we help the team to succeed with business knowledge, business design, and then the implementation and scale part, right? So also this innovation management, I think, is crucial for a big company to succeed. But not only releasing it and saying like, oh, everybody needs to be innovative, and then we have some pitch sessions and pizza and beer. We're building a team around this, getting the sponsor, getting budget, getting buy-in, and all those things really need the freedom to work, that it can really move fast. A lot of corporates also expose this to the when you see it on social media. We just launched this pitch session here, and we're looking for worldwide innovations within XYZ space. Like, nobody cares. The thing people care about inside the company is that you really have a team that is dedicated, and in its job descriptions, you can see, you can say that you're the one having the mandate to innovate and to help this. This is something people really need, not the social media buzz and all those nitty-gritty offices. So what we do internally is a total process of nurturing ideas, but then also checking those ideas and doing the first steps that are actually very cost effective to enhance the success of this venture then.
Before I ask you the second question that I have in my mind, I saw one question coming from the live that is something that popped up to my mind. That is a typical question. We're talking about this entrepreneurship program. On the one hand, if you keep it open, you run the risk of having a gazillion of bizarre ideas that are difficult to be qualified. On the other hand, if you narrow it down to specific internal challenges, there is the problem that you might be missing some potential disruptions or game changer, because in a certain way you are influencing the origination towards your view that is most of the time might be in a certain way chained by legacy. And so this is a question to just drop out. I think it's a spot on point is, how do you manage the need to keep the internal origination close to some concrete issues that you are facing, on the other end, without missing the big innovation trends?
Yeah. So I mentioned one tool being the idea space campaign stuff, right? But another very proven successful tool has been a so-called catalyst network. So these are people that not only have the visibility of all the innovation vehicles within our company, but also spot those people that have these crazy ideas. And then once in a very dedicated time, we do a kind of a board with the innovation managers where we say, we have heard this idea from this employee within engineering or within operations. So we brought this from being a very informal network of innovators to a formal governance where we say we collect all those ideas from the catalyst, from insights, and then decide, this idea might need a little bit more structure, a little bit more nurturing, or this idea is so crazy it could actually work, right? So we kind of know with all the experience we have also, we put it in a context within our company. Because I'm pretty sure, I mean, also around these very crazy ideas that come from all over the company, which are fantastic, but you also have to always put it in the context of the company. Will it succeed in the company, in the time, in the macroeconomic setting we are, or doesn't it stand a chance to succeed? Well, what I said at the beginning, we are a company that is devoted, very experienced within aerospace, everything that is a third dimension, also defense and space. I think this gives us a lot of topics and a lot of things to think about. Combining this with contextuality, will it work within this company? And combining that with the technological experience we have, I think we can very much say what could be successful and what cannot be successful. Of course, you also double down on a lot of ideas and crazy inventions that probably will be successful in the world outside of our company, but just not in this setting here. And yeah.
No, that's again, it's a big topic. Let me fire up a couple of other questions that pop up to my mind. Number one is, do you have a corporate venture capital fund that is Airbus Ventures? Mm-hmm. How does it work alongside the work that you are doing with BizLab? Can you give us some details into how the two of you work together, when you work together, and what you do differently?
Yeah, so Airbus Ventures is a CVC fund, which is an own entity, and that is good. So it's not a business unit of our company, and they normally invest. They have different sets to invest in startups at different stages, but it's mostly aerospace or manufacturing related. So they operate as a traditional VC, right? Identifying, due diligencing, then investing, and then afterwards partnering. What we do, I mean, we're very close to each other because we talk. We always have to be aligned with which startups do we speak to, and what targets to say. So we identify. So the obvious reason at the beginning is that we share deal flow. So we have different touch points every once in a year, where we also share what we have found and also share the trends which we see that the industry is going. There are also some startups that go through our funnel and through our partnering, which then could be interesting for Airbus Ventures, right? But normally, as I said, the Airbus Ventures is more later stage focused on established companies. But let me share a story that is the other way around. So when Airbus Ventures invested in ESA Aerospace, a Munich-based company, which is a potential disruptor from the aerospace business, we then established also a collaboration or a collaboration and partnering with the startups, where we signed an MOU with ESA Aerospace to develop together the propulsion system. So this is also how it can work. So many technological assets we have, the startup can really profit from that on the one hand, and then also by the investment of a big fund like Airbus Ventures.
Another question related to the process. You mentioned that it's important to involve the business unit early on, because again, if you don't get their buy-in, at the end nothing happens. How is this structured, the involvement of the business unit? Something that is informal, something that has been formalized? Just to give you an example, there are some CVC funds, for example, they do invest only if there has been at least POC or pilot with the future portfolio company. There are other accelerators that are just start engaging with startups that are already a prior potential opportunity, and this has to be in a certain way formalized by the business unit first. How do you work, you and also Airbus Ventures?
Maybe taking a step back to answering these questions. My experience from previously, it is very, very complicated to first establish the partnering relationship and bring that through procurement, and then again, or within the same contract, even making more complicated, to have the investment rules in it, right? The term sheet. If you try to combine that, believe me, you're going to be 8, 9, 12 months down the road trying to close the deal. The startup might even be dead at that moment. That's why we really decouple those two processes. One is doing business with the startup, which has nothing to do with the potential investment of Airbus Ventures. Same the other way around. We do not necessarily partner with startups Airbus Ventures invests in, right? So while the focus of Airbus Venture is more on the VC side, and the VC at the end invests out of return on investment, and the partnering side are two different stories. Now, it sometimes happens that these two things combined really make a very, very sexy deal sweetener, or a very nice bouquet of flowers, right? But coming from that idea at the beginning would just lead to very long times and possibly failure of the deal. So we decouple that. Now, concretely to answer your questions, there are, of course, some startups that start within our processes, and then Airbus Ventures due diligences as well, and then they could maybe invest. And same as I talked about the ESA Aerospace deal before, it also happens the other way around. But here again, I would never put this as a requirement from a CVC fund to partner before, and from the innovation unit, I would not make it a prerequisite that it's invested to work with. Because again, I mean, it doesn't mean that the company you invested 5 years ago is still the market leader within the technology you need. So you really need to have that freedom to do so. And it's two different aspects. It's the why, right? Why would you want to start a CVC? If it's to partner with startups, you don't need to invest. If it's doing return on investment on a double-digit billion euro company, well, I'll leave this to the spectators to judge if this makes sense or not. So you mentioned previously Robert Bosch having the approach. They have various vehicles, but also Robert Bosch Venture Capital being independent from the mothership, and not having, as far as I know, not having somebody from the company within their board, because this would just dilute their decisions on how to do this. And this is also how we do it. They are independent on their decisions. They are independent on their investment thesis, and that's also how in my eyes has been proven being not only more successful, but especially being fast, which is again.
Again, this is Robert Bosch Venture Capital. Yourself are pretty clear example of quite independent. For example, CVC funds. Mm-hmm. There are others that have definitely more stronger link with the parent, with the business unit, and they support. Again, one of the beauty of our discussion that there is not something that is exactly like the others. Each of you guys have different approaches, different or more. That's why it is interesting also benchmarking. Mm-hmm. And assessing different reasons behind. One topic that I want to touch base with you, because again, is one of the first things that we started our conversation before this call is, again, I know that you, as myself, are a big believer in measurement and key performance indicators. And so the question is, how do you measure, the big question, how do you measure the outcomes of innovation? What are the key performance indicators of your activities? How do you measure that?
Mm-hmm. At the end, there are only two things that really matter, right? So one is really hard cash. At the end, how much more revenue will I be generating if I either partner with a startup, push an entrepreneur, or build a new venture, right? What is the business case? Show me the money, right? Where is it? Anything else is a very nice side effect, but this is what counts. Only, I mean, take a VC approach here, right? We have one investor, which is our big company, and they want to see a return on investment. So whatever return on investment from their sales people, this is the measurement we should be taking. Either it's doubling or times 5, whatever the shareholder value is. And even as a public listed company, we have to be generating shareholder value. Now, there are some topics that are really so far down the road where you at the moment can write the business case. But that shouldn't also be the time where you start heavily investing. You can do a lot of small experiments, a lot of small bets at the beginning to see where the market is going, which are very, very cost effective. So revenues first. Secondly, Internal efficiencies. So at the end, cost savings. Every CFO loves this, right? So if you can bring in a startup that will give you faster processes to build a car, to build an aircraft, it's worth the time instead of developing it by yourself. So internal efficiencies in terms of money and time. Now, there's the third one, where again, a couple of my peers call it the ripple effect, which is a nice side effect. If it happens, it can be a government support as well when doing innovation. It can be a big deal sweetener when selling your products. But what also a lot of people say, cultural change. Now, I mean, just letting that sink, right? A unit of 30, 40, 50, let be 100 people innovating within the context of hundreds of thousands of people. Is it really possible to change a culture? Is it even necessary to change a culture? I don't know. I would invite everybody to think about innovation labs or accelerators promoting this, and if it is really even possible or necessary. I really do not see it that much. If we reach a couple of people on new methods, new innovations, or how to build ventures, I'm pretty much happy with that. As I said, we do not have to transform the whole culture of the company. That is as it is, and it's very successful as it is. So that again is just everybody who's exploring that and taking that as a reason. I would double check with that. And then from those ones you can derive. We analyzed over 45 different KPIs, which goes from burning rate to really revenue, order intake. But I would say, to not make it very complicated, really show me where the money is. And any other innovation lab that says it's not doing this, I don't know. I wouldn't say that they're very effective.
No, you are right. At the end, cultural change, digital transformation, entrepreneurial thinking. I think this is possible outcomes of the activity that you're doing. Actually, you are delivering this, because the more you do that, and definitely something definitely positive again. But at the end, it's super difficult to be measured, and then it's really difficult to be able to build up something based on KPIs that you cannot measure, because how you measure such a thing. So at the end, we have put together a very, very easy blueprint that says that we move from the age of marketing to actually to the age of returns. Again, if 5 years ago was fine to do something just for being visible, is perceived as an innovator, doing some digital transformation at large. Now I think you need to show the money, you need to show the results. It's not just even enough to show we have been collaborating with 55 startups. Good. How much are the outcomes of that? How much new revenue are producing? How much internal savings are you producing? And that's something that needs to be shown. And at the end, if you're not doing that in a few years, there will be more scrutiny from the top. They say, okay, fine, you play with this beautiful innovation unit, but goodbye. We need to try to go back to business. That's this.
Exactly. And even in times like these, it's you also see like who's really doubling down on innovation, who's investing more in innovation, who believes in that. And only if you can show the numbers, only if you can show that Excel file, where at the end you're delivering a big black number, you're gonna survive. And I'm actually very, very happy on the approach the innovation field is going that way, because to become strategically and business critical, you have to deliver. And everything else was a fun ride and a nice time, but not really sustainable.
Yeah, that's it. So, Chris, thank you for your time. We are coming to the end of our hour. Again, we just have a short glimpse of what Airbus is doing. Again, many other things have been done. I was an happy customer of WOM in Sao Paulo with the beautiful helicopter taxi ride, but has been shut down also because of COVID. Again, there have been a lot of interesting innovation attempts as part of the Airbus Galaxy. Another one is Skywise. Again, we have done plenty of other things that are not strictly part of your unit, but again, there is a lot of stuff that has been done, and so looking forward to touching base with you in the next few months to see what has been the progress, to see some concrete results has been produced down the way. And by now, I want to thank you for your time and for helping us understanding a bit better what Airbus is doing, what your approach as a company and your personal beliefs as innovation leaders. Thank you.
Thank you very much.